Pronoia is the opposite of paranoia. It's the idea that the world, the universe, the people around us, whatever spiritual beings we believe in, are out to support us. They have our back. They're out to help us, rather than the feeling that everyone is out to get us and we're suspicious of joy and success and any kind of pause in between the bad things. Let's start the conversation. I Could Talk to You All Day is a podcast about what it means to be a leader while also being human. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz.
And I'm John Spears, and we coach executives and leaders just like you about shifting from surviving at work and home to thriving in the life you've always wanted.
We're so glad you're here.
Let's get the conversation started.
John Spears.
Yo, Lauren Lefkowitz.
How are things?
Things are grand. Everything's perfect. Everything is just amazing.
Thank goodness.
I know, finally,
we may as
right?
well not have a podcast. But I'm proud of us for having one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also proud of you.
Thank you. Why are you proud of me, John?
I'm proud of you because you just did a big thing.
I did do a big thing.
You had a big accomplishment.
I did. I just earned my PCC designation, which means I am at the professional certified coach level, according
You're
to
so
the
profesh.
International
You are so profesh.
John, I have a question for you.
I have all the answers that you might ever want.
What are you suspicious of?
Every effing thing. My personality structure is suspicious of everything. All the time, under every circumstance.
Fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, I think the way that my kind of brain works is I really love safety and security. And I love kind of operating in the known. It makes me feel really safe, really comfortable, really confident when I feel like I have all the answers. And when I am put in a situation where I don't know everything, which is like every day, almost every minute of every day, um, I catastrophize and I think about all the ways that something could go wrong so that I'm prepared to deal with it. And so there's always just given that bend. I mean, everything. Someone who wants to talk to me at the grocery store. I'm like, what do you really want? Right? Like, okay, you're being really nice, but like, are you gonna ask me for money? Are you gonna give me a kind of a Christian biblical tract to try to convert me? I think of all the things. And I think it's true in relationships, except for you. I think it's true in like everything that I just have this really, I'm always anticipating what could go wrong. So that I'm prepared. It's a superpower of mine because like I'm a great problem solver. I get stuff done. I'm really good at keeping things moving and executing, but it definitely gets in the way of stuff.
What does it get in the way of?
It gets in the way of showing up for whatever might happen with a really sort of open mind and belief that everything is going to be okay.
I'm suspicious of everything also.
Mm.
I am really good at being suspicious. I don't know if I would call it a superpower because it doesn't actually serve me well. I am also great in an emergency. Like I'm the friend you want to come to and say like, I'm holding my severed right arm in my left hand. Please help me fix this. I will get ice. I will tourniquet the remaining part of your arm. I will call an ambulance. I will keep you calm until they arrive. And like, maybe I'll freak out later. But I wouldn't have anticipated that your arm would be severed off. I anticipated everything else.
Yeah, right.
None of that happened. I wasted all kinds of energy on being suspicious of everything else, but I did not imagine, the severed arm scenario. I am mostly suspicious of joy.
Hmm.
And in a lot of cases, when I've told people that, they have an aha moment that they also are suspicious of joy.
Yeah.
The suspicion and the paranoia that I live in is that there will be another shoe dropping.
Yeah.
I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know whose shoe it will be, but there's a consequence in my mind for joy.
Yeah.
How, it feels protective to be suspicious of joy, but it also like self robs me of fully participating in joy because I'm anticipating something bad coming later. Why do you think we're like this? Not like you and me, but like grand scale. Why do you think people like us are like this?
Well, I think a few things. One is Brene Brown talks about this, like this, it's called foreboding joy, where you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think this happens a lot because we have a negativity bias. I feel like we always look, I've been reading a lot about the brain, and our brains are meant for survival. And so I think even though we're like are we hundreds of millions of years away from sort of the beginning of life on the planet, I still think there's that part of our brain, even though we can think and we're really sophisticated, that fundamentally our brains exist to keep us alive. And so I think it's a mechanism that, if left unchecked, could really interfere with our ability to fully live and be present and soak it all in. Or at least that's what I've experienced, in my life.
I agree. I think, yes, negative bias, we know as humans, we're always looking out for danger and trying to prevent it or fix it. I feel like that's been 3/4 of the time I've spent awake in my life and some of the time I've spent asleep. Negative bias is protective, right? Like it gives us this opportunity to feel like we know we're going to be okay because we've thought of all of the scenarios and pre-planned how to handle them. What happens in practice, though, and in actual life, is that the things that come to us are very often not things we're expecting. And because we're living in suspicion and we're living in pre-planning, what did you call it? Foreboding joy?
Yeah.
Yeah, pre-planning for some downfall after something good happens. We spend a lot of energy staying in the negativity.
Totally.
And if we try to lean too hard and too fast into positivity, it feels false. It feels like superficial gratitude. Feels like we're playing a game that we don't really want to be playing, because even though out loud we're saying positive things, we're still feeling that sort of negative bias. And so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about a topic called pronoia. And pronoia is a word that I hadn't heard until a few years ago, but it is the opposite of paranoia. So paranoia is what brings us this negative bias. Something bad is going to happen. I have to protect myself. The universe is out to get me. People are out to get me. Pronoia, on the flip side, is the idea that the world is out to support us. It is out for our good. And that whatever happens to us, and whether you believe in God or source or universe or spirit guides or nothing at all, just human behavior, pronoia is the idea that whatever is happening to us, however things are going, it is for the good of our future.
Yeah.
And for me, something that was really impactful was learning about the model that I'm going to ask you to talk about, which is the path of how things happen. And we learned it when we were going through our coach certification. We've both read about it in different books. But can you walk through this model of how we as people tend to be when things happen?
Based off of Michael Beckwith's work. It's basically the four ways of being or the four stages of consciousness. And it's not necessarily that you have to go through one to get to the other. It's just sort of a state of being. It really begins with this idea that life is happening to me, this sort of to me way of being. And the way that we show up if we're in this kind of state of being is, we're blaming and we're complaining. Our posture is being the victim. Some of our core beliefs around this are really all about sort of there's a problem, someone is at fault, someone needs to fix this. We ask questions like, why me? Whose fault is this? Being the second is around is sort of by me that I make life happen. The way that we show up is we're the creator. We are curious, where we have appreciation for what's happening. Problems are here for me to learn from. Um, if I created the problem, I can also solve the problem. And so there's lots of like curiosity and there's lots of responsibility that shows up we're in this if we're in this state of being, of sort of leading, of consciousness. The next state is all around sort of cooperating with life happening around me. So it's called through me. We're co-creating life, to your point that you just mentioned, sort of with God, with the universe, with other people, whatever your sort of spiritual belief is. You're in a state of allowing and flow and wonder and awe. And sort of some of the core beliefs around this model are around I'm the source of all meaning that I experience. So really sort of this creative creation, co-creator kind of space that like a question that you might want to ask if you're in this state is what wants to happen through me? It's kind of like you're a vessel for stuff to happen through you. And the last is around as me. And it's this idea that you're at one with all, with God, the universe, spirit, source, other people, collective consciousness. And the experience that a lot of people have when they're in this state of being is around peace and spaciousness, that there's just sort of this oneness and connectedness with everything around you, with everything that's happening. So there aren't problems to solve. There's nothing to solve for. It's basically sort of just openness and connectedness. And so when you think about how you're showing up and how we're experiencing life, uh, you can sort of categorize or place yourself in one of these four quadrants. And I love this model because it's really allowed me to to see where my core beliefs are at that moment. There are some days where I'll sort of vacillate between all of these different quadrants, and I'm playing the victim in a moment, and I can quickly move to responsibility or to me. And my goal is I would really love in most of my experiences to experience this sort of as me through me. There's no like right or wrong here. There's no like one is better than the other. It's just a way to be able to really challenge and to see how you're showing up and where some of your core beliefs are playing out in your experience.
I love this model too, and I think the Conscious Leadership Institute described it really well. And there's a book, if you're looking for a book, called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, that really goes into a lot of the how
Yeah.
related to this particular model and a bunch of other stuff. It's a great book. What really stands out to me when I think about this model is my brain automatically goes to, well, as me is the positive person.
Yeah.
And victimhood, I don't want to be a victim, so now I can't blame anything on anyone. I really like that you pointed out that you can be in all four quadrants at once. You can be crossing over quadrants. None of what we're talking about is intended to blame anybody, including ourselves, for things that have happened to us, right? There are bad things and good things that happen to
Mhm.
us all of the time. the question that I think this model brings up is, what is it for? Like,
Hmm.
what is the purpose of the thing that happened? And what is it there to help you learn or grow from or appreciate or decide you don't want any more of? When I think about this model, I often think about it in a linear way. Like
Right.
there's an
Yeah.
achievement in as me because I tend to always start at the black and white. I tend to always
Yeah.
start at the will mechanisms at work, right? Like either I'm doing it right or I'm doing it wrong. And that particular model of being has been in me for so long that my work is always in like, where am I
Hmm.
actually?
Yeah.
Instead of snapping to judgment of what I've achieved. And what I like about this model is that it is fluid and it has the opportunity to, I can be all four things at once in the
Hmm.
same scenario.
Yeah.
So, how does pronoia relate to this idea of to me, by me, through me, as me?
Yeah. I mean, I think it relates to it in the sense that, if I believe that God, the universe, that everything that happens in life is for my benefit, if I truly believe that, I am no longer asking the questions that are from a more victimy place. I'm not asking why me, whose fault is this? How, that there's no blame. The questions are really that I would ask are sort of, like what wants to happen here? What is this lesson teaching me? There's a lot of curiosity. And so, if you think about it, if life is me, there are no questions to ask. And I'm certainly not there yet. Um, the question I like to ask is, what is this happening for? What should I learn from this? What what is this teaching me? And so I really think that pronoia, at least for me, believing that is the first step to take me out of my experience as a victim. And I would say for so many years, I would more than half of my life, probably I'm 44, for 38, 40 years of my life, probably, I played the victim. I always was in this very defensive place of why me, what was happening. And it just wasn't a place that brought me a lot of joy all the time. And it was a lot of like counting faults and sort of keeping score, kind of a life of like, okay, these set things happened to me and this person did this to me. So I, whatever. And I think once you let go of that kind of way of thinking or being, it has freed me up personally to be so much more open, even though my kind of pattern and my initial place is sort of, I wouldn't say paranoia. I don't think it's paranoia, but I think it's like cynicism and sort of questioning and sort of planning and catastrophizing. It's given me more access to freedom and to create and to see myself as a co-creator and a partner with the universe for my life, as opposed to this sort of wave of things happening to me where I'm not in control of my own life. I don't have agency, right? And so I think that shift has been so transformative for me.
I have always viewed, until recent past, myself to only fit into the to me, by me
Hmm.
model.
Hmm.
Things are going to happen to me and then I have to overcome, or I'm going to make things happen because nobody's going to do it for me. And it's a very like lean forward defensive stance.
Hmm.
And even when it's not strictly paranoia, I think both you and I bristle at the word paranoia because I'm not like always looking around for monsters. But there is, I think, in the sort of grand other side, the extreme side of paranoia, cynicism, speculation, suspicion, there is this constant on feeling of feeling like if it's quiet, something's going to happen.
Hmm.
If things are good, something's going to happen. And so for me, that's where the paranoia lives in me, is the lack of trust in either neutral or positive. So I had an experience this week where I went to a meditation, and the meditation was about momentum. The example that they gave was of riding a bicycle down a hill, and you may have to start on level ground by pedaling, but then the momentum of the hill carries you down. So you don't have to pedal, you don't have to work for it, you don't have to think about it. There's more and more and more ease and a breeze in your hair and delight as you go down the hill. And in my head, I thought, careen, as you careen down the hill towards imminent danger. What that pointed out to me is that I have not viewed momentum as pronoia. So if I'm able to actually believe that pronoia exists and that the universe is out to help me, and that this particular meditation was a point in the direction of learning, of, channeling something through me, the lesson was I feel more comfortable sitting on the negative side,
Hmm.
sitting on the side of suspicion and paranoia, because I know it. It's an old friend.
Exactly. Totally.
And I've learned how to protect myself by being hyper aware and hyper vigilant about what my surroundings are and what I need to prevent or fix or handle for somebody else. And so this idea of momentum for me, this feeling that they were trying to evoke in everybody, that was this freedom of flying down a hill, for me was, well, did we check for rocks to make sure that my bike isn't going to go over a rock? Is there enough air in my tires? Can I have brakes? Because what if I don't want to go that fast? And my learning from that was that I took this imaginary bicycle ride, which if you have listened before, you know that I don't know how to ride a bike. But we took this imaginary bike ride and we made it so dangerous in my head.
Yeah.
When I really sat and thought about that, I thought about, if I'm at a hill and I am working towards something and I'm working to motivate myself or build momentum around something, to me, it always feels like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill, that it has to be hard. And the idea of pronoia is, does it? Right? Like, does it have to be hard? Do you
Hmm.
have to learn a bunch of lessons and defend yourself against a whole bunch of things? Or can you take things as they are and then decide? So I would love to know from you, John, when was a time where something happened to you or you did something, like something existed in your personal universe that was negative, and what it led to was so positive that you realized it had to have happened?
It's really funny that you asked this question now because I actually just had an experience this weekend, this past weekend, that would fit into this kind of question. So I went to a retreat in Maine, and the retreat was on the weekend. And the Monday before, I just decided to go. There was like one or two spots open, and I was like, I read up on it. I felt like this was like the right time for me to go to this retreat. And so I went to it. And when I got there, it just felt like something was kind of off. Like it was like not everything was off, but there was just like a few things I was like kind of like I had the ick around, and I wasn't sure what it was. And I kind of was sort of like beating myself up for, you didn't do enough research, you made this decision rashly, like you should have planned better, you should have better intuition, all the like negative things around it. And at the end of the day, the retreat was fine. I actually got what I needed to get out of it. But I think one of the things that was the really powerful thing is there was another person there that during kind of a share, and of course this was like a retreat where you'd have like a sharing circle. If you know me, you know like that's kind of like my jam. She said something like, I don't feel safe here. And I was like, oh crap, like I kind of feel the same thing. And it was such an amazing lesson for both me and my new friend that I met in trusting our intuition and trusting ourselves. And so even though I could have just sort of shut it all down and kind of focused on all the negative there. I was open to like honoring my own experience and getting out whatever I needed to get out of the weekend, which included this new friend and this new ability to trust myself. And so, I think that's one of those things where I could have been very victimy. I could have been very much in the like, this thing is happening to me and why is this happening and sort of blaming and beating myself up and blaming them. And I think I was really able to move to a space where I was more in this like co-creator through me. Like, this is happening. I'm here. I'm in Maine, very far from where I live, in the middle of nowhere. And like, what am I available for here? And what am I present to here? And I think being able to sit with all that at the same time was really, really powerful for me. And uh, I was able to sort of really believe that this is all happening for my benefit. And it's a huge lesson for me. And I'm still walking away with what I came here for and what I needed to experience here.
I love that. Yeah. I've had many experiences that just I felt very victimy in the moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes I was the victim. I was the recipient of something that I did not create, control, plan for.
Yeah.
And also, I wouldn't be sitting here in this moment on this podcast today with you because all of those things had to happen in order.
Yeah. Yeah.
The biggest one for me that I think about is having broken my shoulders, which is physically the worst thing that's ever happened to me, which says a lot because I've been living with chronic illness for 20 years. But physically was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I almost immediately realized that it was for me, that it was for my benefit when my friends started joking around about, look who can't be a chronic hand raiser anymore.
Yeah.
And like, it felt like a literal lesson from the universe that I didn't have to raise my hands in order to add value. And I had amazing support, and I reconnected with friends I hadn't talked to in a long time because what a story. Who doesn't want to visit the girl who has two broken shoulders? And it led me here today. I would never have realized that I didn't want to be the corporate workaholic that I was unless I actually took the steps that I took beyond that. So this is not a lesson in toxic positivity. This isn't me saying like, I'm so glad I broke my shoulders. This isn't you saying, I'm so glad I spent money and time on a retreat that didn't add value for me. It's the idea that if this is all happening for us, if the world, the universe, the people around us, God, source, whatever we believe in, is looking out for our greater good, then what can we find in everything?
Yeah.
There's a great book called Pronoia by Rob Bresney that just tells a lot of stories that I think bring you into the idea of a shifted mindset towards how can I grow from this? What can this do for me? Instead of always feeling like things have happened to me. As we wrap up, John, what advice do you have for folks out there listening to this and trying to get their heads around the idea of pronoia?
I think as we were talking, Laura and I jotted down a few things around something that we come back to all the time in our conversations, and that is choice. You have a choice on what you're going to believe. You can believe that everything's out to get you, that the universe is out to get you, or on the other side of the spectrum, you can believe that everything that's happening is for your benefit and that the universe has your back. Um, and you can also believe that the stories you tell yourself or the thoughts that go through your brain are true and the only way to see things, or you can be really curious about seeing things as they are without an attachment to a belief system around things that you've been carrying in a narrative and a story and all the data points that you look to sort of back your own experience. And so I think, as everything, that believing that the universe has your back is a choice. And you can either believe that or not believe it. And I found that my life is greatly impacted depending on what side of the spectrum that I'm on. And I can also say in my own experience that I am much happier and at ease and able to move and navigate through life during the times where I believe that everything is happening for a reason, that I'm learning, that I'm growing, that it's for my benefit. And as I look back at my life, even in the times where I felt like a victim, I can see that to be true. Your thoughts are not you. You get to choose how attached you want to be to those thoughts and what kind of lens you're seeing and experiencing the world through.
Great final points, John. Thank you so much. This and every episode we do is so much fun. And for those of you out there, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, how can I evaluate how pronoia is coming up in my life? Take a look at your life. Take a look at, pick something that has happened to you that didn't feel good at the time that it happened to you, or pick 10 things. And now look at them from the perspective of what has happened for me or through me, or what have I created in my life that I couldn't have been a part of had the bad thing not happened to me. Thank you as always for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
We're so grateful you decided to be with us during this episode. Subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues, and join us next time for more Real Talk.